Iconic American brand Harley-Davidson. We reported last night here President Trump lashing out after Harley-Davidson said it was moving some production overseas.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk a little bit about the deal itself. You raised $334 million in gross proceeds, which...
Jochen Zeitz, the CEO of Harley-Davidson, recently acknowledged that the iconic motorcycle manufacturer is grappling with significant challenges that have shaken its very foundations. This revelation, while not entirely unexpected given the shifting dynamics of the automotive industry, marks a pivotal moment in the company's long and storied history. Known for its deep-rooted identity in American culture, Harley-Davidson has traditionally embodied the spirit of freedom and rebellion. But now, as the landscape of transportation, customer expectations, and global economics transform at an unprecedented pace, the company is being forced to confront issues that are more existential than cosmetic. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. One of the most pressing concerns facing Harley-Davidson is its aging core demographic. For decades, the brand catered to baby boomers who valued the loud, powerful engines and the open-road ethos that Harley symbolized. However, this loyal customer base is gradually aging out of the market. The younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, are not picking up the torch in the same numbers. Their preferences lean toward more eco-conscious, tech-integrated, and cost-effective transportation options. The rumbling of a V-twin engine does not hold the same allure to them as it did to their predecessors. For Harley-Davidson, this generational shift is more than a marketing hiccup. It represents a seismic change in consumer behavior that the company has struggled to keep up with. Alongside demographic challenges, the brand is also navigating the troubled waters of international competition and globalization. Markets that once seemed promising, such as those in Asia and Latin America, have proven far more competitive than anticipated. Local manufacturers in these regions offer motorcycles that are more affordable, more practical, and often more aligned with urban mobility needs. Harley-Davidson's traditional heavyweight cruisers and touring bikes, while iconic, are often seen as bulky, expensive, and inefficient in the crowded streets of cities like Bangkok, Sao Paulo, or Mumbai. As a result, Harley's global expansion strategies have failed to gain the traction necessary to offset declining domestic sales. Compounding these external pressures is the internal difficulty of evolving the brand without alienating its core. Harley-Davidson is not just a motorcycle company, it is a lifestyle brand with deep cultural roots. Any attempts at modernization are scrutinized by loyalists who view change as betrayal. When the company introduced electric motorcycles such as the LiveWire, it faced a wave of skepticism from traditionalists. Although these electric models have been praised for their performance and innovation, they remain niche products. The challenge lies in bridging the gap between legacy and innovation, a task that no amount of marketing spin can easily resolve. Production and supply chain issues have also emerged as major obstacles. Harley-Davidson's manufacturing process, like many in the automotive industry, has suffered disruptions due to global supply chain instability. From semiconductor shortages to the rising cost of raw materials, the company has had to contend with delays and increased production costs that eat into profit margins. These logistical challenges are further complicated by the specialized nature of Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Each bike is a complex, high-performance machine that demands precision and quality. When even one component is delayed, entire production lines can grind to a halt. Another major point of tension is the company's financial structure. Despite its historical prestige, Harley-Davidson operates within the same financial constraints as any publicly traded corporation. Investors expect growth, profitability, and forward momentum. In recent years, however, the company has struggled to consistently deliver on those fronts. Sluggish sales, rising operational costs, and increased R&D spending on electric and lightweight models have put a strain on earnings. As CEO, Jochen Zeitz has had to make difficult decisions to balance long-term vision with short-term financial realities. These decisions often involve cutting costs, restructuring divisions, or withdrawing from underperforming markets. Moves that, while necessary, can also create instability and erode confidence. The broader economic climate has not been kind to Harley-Davidson either. Inflation, interest rate hikes, and fears of recession have made consumers more cautious about discretionary spending. A Harley-Davidson motorcycle, often seen as a luxury or lifestyle purchase rather than a necessity, can quickly fall off a consumer's wish list when financial times get tough. Moreover, financing options so crucial for many buyers become less attractive or harder to secure in a tighter economic environment. This creates a double bind where both the demand and the means to fulfill that demand diminish simultaneously. Brand perception, another crucial factor, has also evolved in ways that challenge Harley-Davidson's dominance. While the brand still holds significant cachet among motorcycle enthusiasts, the broader public no longer views it as the unrivaled symbol of cool that it once was. In fact, for many younger consumers, Harley-Davidson may even be seen as outdated or out of touch. This perception issue is difficult to quantify but enormously impactful. It affects everything from social media engagement to merchandise sales, from the desirability of its bikes to the willingness of influencers and celebrities to associate with the brand. In a world increasingly driven by image and digital presence, Harley's slower adaptation to modern branding strategies has left it playing catch-up. The move towards electrification, though visionary in the long term, has also revealed a deep chasm within the company's strategic planning. Electric vehicles are no longer a futuristic option. They are becoming the norm. Tesla revolutionized the automobile industry by proving that EVs can be both desirable and functional. For motorcycle manufacturers, the path is less straightforward. Battery technology for two-wheeled vehicles still lags behind cars in range, performance, and infrastructure support. Harley-Davidson's foray into this space is commendable, but it's clear that they were late to the party. Competitors, both established and emerging, are already staking claims in the electric motorcycle sector with nimbleness and agility that Harley has found difficult to replicate. There's also the cultural issue of what a Harley represents. For years, owning one of their motorcycles was synonymous with a kind of rugged, masculine identity. However, societal definitions of identity, masculinity, and lifestyle are becoming more fluid. Younger consumers don't necessarily define freedom or adventure in the same terms. Many are more interested in sustainability, minimalism, and digital connectivity, values that conflict with the gas-guzzling, chrome-laden image Harley-Davidson still largely embodies. Adapting the brand to resonate with these new values without diluting its core essence is a branding challenge of the highest order. Adding another layer of complexity is the talent pipeline within the company. Attracting and retaining top talent in engineering, marketing, and design becomes harder when a brand is perceived as being behind the curve. Younger professionals, particularly those in tech and innovation sectors, are more likely to be drawn to startups or companies with a dynamic, future-forward image. Harley-Davidson must now compete not just with other motorcycle manufacturers, but with tech giants and EV startups for the best minds in the business. This intensifies the urgency of transformation, while also underscoring the internal inertia that legacy companies often face. Jochen Zeitz, in acknowledging these problems, did not offer sugar-coated reassurances. Instead, the admission signals a more transparent and perhaps more urgent phase in the company's evolution. Zeitz himself brings an interesting dynamic to the table. Having previously led Puma through a brand revitalization, he understands the importance of heritage, but also the necessity of reinvention. His leadership style, more global and strategic than operationally entrenched, reflects the kinds of decisions Harley-Davidson must make in the coming years. Decisions that will determine whether it remains a powerful symbol of the American road or becomes a nostalgic relic of a bygone era. The problem is further intensified by Harley's deeply entrenched corporate structure. Legacy systems, processes, and hierarchies often make it difficult to pivot quickly. Transformational change requires not just vision, but execution. And that means modernizing operations from the ground up. Everything from procurement systems to dealership networks to after-sales service needs to be aligned with a new direction. Such a holistic transformation takes time, money, and most critically, consensus. Something that's not easy to build in a company with such a storied past and strong internal culture. Furthermore, the dealership model that once underpinned Harley-Davidson's success is now seen as a liability. Consumers, especially younger ones, prefer digital platforms, streamlined purchasing, and customization options that don't require face-to-face negotiation or in-store visits. The traditional dealership experience feels antiquated compared to the seamless digital shopping experiences offered by modern retailers and even some automotive brands. Updating this model while maintaining support for a network that has long been loyal and foundational to the brand is another tightrope Harley must walk. There's also the issue of regulation and environmental pressure. Governments around the world are introducing stricter emission standards, urban traffic policies, and incentives for electric vehicles. Harley-Davidson's core offerings, heavy gas-powered cruisers, are increasingly at odds with these trends. To meet future compliance demands, the company will need to re-engineer many of its products, which is an expensive and time-consuming process. Moreover, simply meeting regulations is not enough. The brand needs to appear progressive and responsible in the eyes of environmentally conscious consumers. That means going beyond compliance and actively leading in areas like sustainability, circular economy practices, and carbon offsetting, territory where Harley has only begun to tread. At the core of these multifaceted challenges is the question of identity. What does Harley-Davidson want to be in the 21st century? A preservationist of American mechanical tradition, a bold pioneer in electric two-wheeled transport, a lifestyle brand that sells more hoodies than horsepower? The lack of a clear, unifying narrative makes it difficult for stakeholders, whether they are customers, investors, or employees, to rally around a common vision. Without that clarity, every new initiative risks being seen as either a betrayal of the brand or a half-hearted compromise. Even within the riding community, divisions have begun to emerge. Hardcore traditionalists view newer models and innovations with skepticism, while newer riders often feel alienated by the insular, somewhat elitist subcultures that surround the brand. Harley-Davidson finds itself in the difficult position of trying to speak to both groups at once, often ending up with messaging that resonates with neither. For a brand so tied to community and lifestyle, this fragmentation is especially dangerous. The weight of legacy, while an asset in many ways, also becomes a burden in times of crisis. The company's century-plus heritage commands respect, but also brings expectations that can be stifling. Reinvention under such weight requires not just courage, but a willingness to fail, iterate, and learn, a startup mentality that does not come naturally to legacy corporations. Harley-Davidson must somehow cultivate this mindset internally, while also maintaining enough stability to keep the business viable during the transition. Zeitz's admission of the company's struggles marks a sobering moment of clarity. It opens the door for difficult but necessary conversations about what must change and how fast those changes need to occur. The problems are not insurmountable, but they are deeply embedded in the very fabric of the company. Success will require more than product redesigns or new ad campaigns. It will require a complete rethinking of how Harley-Davidson creates value, delivers it, and communicates it to a radically different world. What happens next will be determined not just by what products Harley builds, but by the choices it makes in leadership, culture, and vision. The challenges may be massive, but so too is the opportunity for rebirth, for relevance, and perhaps for a new kind of legacy. While Jochen Zeitz's acknowledgement of Harley-Davidson's current struggles offers a striking moment of truth for the company, it also casts light on the complex web of challenges ahead, many of which lie not just in the company's product line or brand, but in the very structural DNA of the business itself. Harley-Davidson is confronting a crossroads that requires more than surface-level adaptation. What's at stake is a complete recalibration of its business model, operational philosophy, and strategic orientation in an economic and cultural environment that no longer automatically favors legacy brands. One of the most critical issues now staring Harley-Davidson in the face is scalability in a fragmented market. In the past, success for Harley often meant producing and selling more heavyweight cruisers and touring bikes, vehicles that were premium, high-margin products and deeply tied to an aspirational lifestyle. But in today's landscape, consumer preferences are fragmented across multiple categories: electric bikes, scooters, mid-sized commuters, adventure bikes, and even subscription-based mobility services. To thrive, Harley cannot merely dominate one niche. It needs to be flexible and responsive across many segments. Yet scalability in this new context isn't just about capacity, it's about flexibility. Harley-Davidson's traditional manufacturing system, geared toward mass production of large-format motorcycles, was never built to pivot quickly between product types or respond in real time to market trends. Adapting to this new reality demands a reinvention of operational workflows, supplier relationships, and production philosophy, turning an industrial behemoth into something much more nimble. The financial implications of such transformation are immense. Diversification into smaller, more varied vehicle types, particularly electric models, will not produce the high profit margins that Harley is accustomed to from its legacy products. The company must now brace for a transitional period where profitability is not only squeezed, but possibly volatile. Investors, used to the relatively predictable cash flows generated by Harley's core offerings, may find this uncertainty hard to swallow. Zeitz and the board must manage expectations delicately, making a case for long-term vision over short-term earnings. A challenge when markets are increasingly driven by quarterly performance metrics and impatient shareholders. Moreover, Harley-Davidson's ability to execute such a broad transformation is constrained by its long-standing corporate culture, which tends to favor tradition over innovation. Even within the organization, inertia can be a powerful adversary. Employees, suppliers, and even some dealers may resist the kinds of sweeping changes needed to reorient the brand. Shifting culture requires more than new slogans or executive mandates. It demands re-education, the infusion of new talent, and a redefinition of success metrics that emphasize learning, experimentation, and adaptability. Harley-Davidson will need to become a different kind of company, not only in terms of products, but in terms of how it thinks and behaves internally. At the same time, the emergence of new mobility ecosystems is eroding Harley's relevance in the broader transportation narrative. Ride-sharing, vehicle-as-a-service, and multimodal transportation networks are rapidly altering the relationship consumers have with vehicle ownership. For many urban dwellers, especially in regions where Harley had hoped to grow, owning a personal motorcycle is neither practical nor desirable. If Harley-Davidson wants to remain a player in the evolving mobility space, it must do more than sell motorcycles. It needs to start thinking about service models, integrated transportation, and digital platforms. The rise of app-based solutions, from electric scooters to subscription models, points to a future where value is derived less from the vehicle itself and more from the ecosystem it belongs to. Entering this world would require Harley to build entirely new capabilities in software, data analytics, and service logistics, areas where it currently has little experience or infrastructure. The evolution of marketing itself presents another nuanced challenge. For most of its history, Harley-Davidson's branding revolved around emotional appeals: freedom, rebellion, the open road. But emotional resonance in modern marketing is increasingly tied to lifestyle integration and digital storytelling. Brands are expected to engage their audiences across multiple platforms, using influencers, immersive content, interactive media, and user-generated narratives. Harley's legacy storytelling doesn't easily translate to TikTok, Twitch, or Web3 environments where today's brand loyalty is shaped. Building that presence takes more than repurposing old campaigns. It requires a fresh voice, new ambassadors, and a profound shift in narrative tone, one that resonates with diverse, socially conscious, and globally connected communities. Environmental accountability is another mounting pressure. Across industries, companies are expected to embrace sustainability not as a side initiative but as a core business philosophy. Consumers now scrutinize everything, from the sourcing of raw materials to energy usage, supply chain transparency, and product end-of-life practices. Harley-Davidson, whose flagship products are built on internal combustion engines and chrome-plated aesthetics, faces an uphill climb in aligning with this ethos. While its venture into electric motorcycles is a step in the right direction, true environmental leadership will require a full-spectrum approach. This includes investing in renewable energy for manufacturing, adopting circular economy principles, reducing packaging waste, and incorporating environmentally friendly materials across product lines. Greenwashing will no longer suffice. Only deep, demonstrable commitment will earn trust in this domain. As Harley attempts to pivot, it also faces an intellectual property challenge. In a landscape driven by rapid innovation, the ability to develop, protect, and monetize new technologies is paramount. But unlike tech firms or even newer electric vehicle startups, Harley-Davidson's current intellectual property portfolio is heavily skewed toward mechanical patents and branding assets. It needs to build expertise in software development, user interface design, battery technology, and telematics. These areas of intellectual property are crucial for delivering competitive advantage in a connected, digital, and autonomous mobility environment. Without this, Harley may find itself at the mercy of third-party technology providers, losing control over key parts of its value chain and diminishing its long-term strategic leverage. Global regulatory environments are evolving rapidly, and not in ways that favor Harley's legacy offerings. Cities across Europe, Asia, and North America are moving toward banning or limiting internal combustion engines in urban cores. Noise ordinances, emission caps, and vehicle accessibility mandates all threaten the viability of Harley's current lineup in some of the most lucrative metropolitan markets. Complying with these regulations isn't just a matter of retrofitting engines. It often requires a holistic redesign of the vehicle itself, including weight reduction, smart connectivity, and advanced braking and safety systems. Harley is being forced to play regulatory catch-up in multiple jurisdictions, draining resources and distracting from proactive innovation. Further complicating the path ahead is the issue of identity politics and cultural representation. For many years, Harley-Davidson thrived on a narrow image that was hyper-masculine, distinctly American, and steeped in a kind of rugged individualism. In today's diverse and multicultural marketplace, this image can be as alienating as it is iconic. Women, people of color, and non-binary riders have historically been underrepresented both in Harley's marketing and in its product design. As consumer expectations shift toward inclusivity, Harley must find a way to broaden its appeal without resorting to tokenism. This means designing bikes that accommodate a wider range of body types, creating marketing campaigns that reflect real diversity, and fostering community engagement that feels authentic rather than performative. The digital transformation of the retail landscape also poses a significant challenge. Today's consumers expect seamless, omni-channel shopping experiences, where product research, customization, ordering, financing, and delivery can all be managed online with minimal friction. Harley's current dealership-heavy model is structurally unsuited to this kind of digital convenience. Rebuilding its retail experience for the digital age will require deep investments in e-commerce infrastructure, CRM systems, and data analytics capabilities. Moreover, it will necessitate reimagining the role of dealerships, not as gatekeepers of product access, but as experience centers and community hubs that add unique, value-driven interactions impossible to replicate online. Behind all these external and structural issues lies an even more subtle but equally crucial challenge: psychological fatigue. Within the company, within the dealer network, and among longtime customers, there is a growing sense of unease, an acknowledgement that the road ahead is uncharted and uncertain. Constant reinvention, while necessary, can be exhausting. Employees who once took pride in continuity and heritage now face a future filled with ambiguity and unfamiliar benchmarks. Dealers are being asked to represent products and services that don't yet have strong market demand or proven sales models. Customers are being encouraged to see themselves differently, to trade in their traditional roles as guardians of an outlaw tradition for pioneers of a more sustainable, inclusive, and tech-savvy lifestyle. Amid this turmoil, Harley-Davidson must find ways to maintain internal cohesion. Leaders will need to communicate not just strategy, but purpose, to inspire belief in a vision that feels both authentic and achievable. Organizational change cannot be mandated from the top. It must be felt and enacted across every level of the company. That requires transparency, a tolerance for dissent, and an openness to new ideas from unexpected places. It also means creating space for experimentation, where failure is seen not as a setback but as a stepping stone toward relevance. Strategic partnerships could play a pivotal role in Harley-Davidson's reinvention. Whether it's collaborating with battery innovators, mobility service providers, or digital infrastructure companies, Harley must acknowledge that it cannot go it alone. The age of the solitary industrial giant is over. The future belongs to ecosystems, and success will depend on the company's ability to position itself as a compelling node within broader networks of innovation, distribution, and customer engagement. But to do this effectively, Harley must bring something unique to the table. Not just nostalgia, but genuine value that complements its partners and elevates the entire ecosystem. Education and outreach, especially to new riders, also represent a vital area for investment. Riding a motorcycle is an intimidating proposition for many potential customers, particularly those who didn't grow up around bikes or who lack community support. Harley could take the lead in demystifying motorcycle culture through online training modules, virtual riding simulators, community mentorship programs, and beginner-friendly content. By reducing barriers to entry and creating a welcoming on-ramp to the lifestyle, Harley can start to rebuild its rider base from the ground up. In addition to outreach, Harley needs to rethink its approach to innovation. The days of long-closed R&D cycles are over. Agile methodologies, open innovation, and co-creation with customers are becoming the norm. Harley should consider more hackathons, idea incubators, and rapid prototyping labs that bring together engineers, designers, and even end users to solve real-world problems in real time. Innovation must become a living, breathing part of the company's culture, not something confined to a single department or annual budget. One often overlooked but increasingly critical factor in Harley-Davidson's evolving dilemma is the shifting terrain of insurance and liability within the motorcycle industry. As vehicles become more advanced, particularly with the integration of digital systems, autonomy, and electrification, the complexity of risk assessment multiplies. Traditional motorcycles, while risky, had predictable insurance models, but electric motorcycles with software-based systems introduce new dimensions of liability, ranging from software malfunctions to cybersecurity vulnerabilities. Harley-Davidson must now engage with a completely different set of compliance standards, risk models, and insurance partners. Developing safe, insurable products in this environment requires technical oversight and partnerships with legal and cyber risk experts, which until recently were not even on Harley's radar. This is a structural shift, not just a product concern. In tandem, cybersecurity becomes a foundational concern. As Harley-Davidson begins to deploy more connected motorcycles, vehicles that interact with phones, cloud systems, or even traffic networks, the risk of digital breaches increases. Unauthorized access to bike functions, personal data leaks, and compromised navigation systems are no longer far-fetched scenarios. They are real threats that can damage user trust and brand reputation. Unlike consumer electronics, where a software patch can often resolve issues, a vulnerability in a moving vehicle carries immediate physical risk. Harley must invest in cybersecurity not as an auxiliary function, but as a core part of its product development pipeline. Another emerging pressure point is the ethical sourcing of materials. As Harley-Davidson shifts further into electrification, it enters the global competition for lithium, cobalt, nickel, and other critical minerals used in battery production. These resources are often mined in geopolitically unstable regions or under ethically dubious labor conditions. Consumers and regulators alike are demanding greater transparency about where and how these materials are sourced. Failure to meet expectations here won't just result in public backlash. It could lead to real legal and trade consequences, especially in Europe and North America, where supply chain scrutiny is intensifying. Harley will need to develop a sourcing strategy that aligns with environmental and human rights standards, while still ensuring cost-effective access to necessary components. Parallel to supply concerns is the escalating role of data. As Harley integrates more smart features into its vehicles, from real-time diagnostics to user performance tracking, it begins accumulating vast amounts of customer data. This data has the potential to become a strategic asset, informing product design, service improvements, and targeted marketing. However, it also introduces complex privacy and data governance responsibilities. How this data is collected, stored, and used will determine whether Harley is seen as a trustworthy innovator or an intrusive relic. With data privacy laws tightening worldwide, building a responsible data architecture is no longer optional. It is a prerequisite for future growth. Finally, Harley-Davidson must confront its relationship with the broader public infrastructure. As cities adapt to electric vehicles, they invest in charging stations, priority lanes, and tech integrations. Most of this development is designed with electric cars in mind, not motorcycles. Harley must advocate for the inclusion of two-wheeled vehicles in future infrastructure plans, ensuring that electric motorcycles are not sidelined in policy decisions. This requires lobbying, partnership with urban planners, and proactive engagement in public policy forums, a domain where Harley has historically been underrepresented. Without this forward-thinking involvement, the company risks building products for a world that isn't ready to accommodate them. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Harley's CEO admitting huge problems? What changes do you expect? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.